I know personally firsthand how important this knowledge is and how it is not, out there every day. People are not talking about it. In fact, quite the opposite is being pushed on us. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Rick Fischer.
Thank you, Harmony, for having me join you here in this call.
Thank you so much. First, I want to show everybody this incredibly beautiful book. The cover is so gorgeous. It is called the Complete Copper Toxicity Handbook. And of course, it was written by Rick Fischer. Now, this is an accumulation of more than a decade worth of research and knowledge and working with clients, helping them to resolve this particular issue. So this isn't something that, was just researched on the internet and he wrote a book. This is a decade's worth of intellectual property and proof of concept with the amazing amount of people that he has helped over the time that he's been working as a practitioner doing this. And he had to do a phenomenal amount of research to be able to actually source the intellectual property, to be able to do this, and literally is the person who is educating a majority of the people that are working in this arena doing this work, because it wasn't established. There were no courses, there was nowhere to look for this stuff. So as a woman myself, I'm incredibly grateful to see a man who has taken a personal interest in this and is working to serve the goddesses out there to help them figure their health out when the medical world is actually pointing us in the opposite direction. So I'd like to ask you, why did you decide to write this book?
Well, Harmony, I've been doing this work now for just over a decade, a very, very dedicated decade to nothing but research and, of course, serving my clients as well. I got into this line of research after a very personal, tragedy that happened to someone that I loved who had copper toxicity. And at that time, this conversation of copper toxicity was completely off the radar. And I just threw my life into this research. It didn't take me very long to discover lots of other people struggling with copper toxicity that also weren't provided guidance. And a decade ago, I put together the coppertoxic.com website, which today is the leading education, support, and resource site for copper toxicity. I've created numerous educational materials over the years. I've trained thousands of practitioners now in not just copper, but also mineral imbalances and their impacts on health. I support international research. And of course, in my clinical practice as well, working with just an endless stream of women in particular, guys as well, but women in particular, who've been affected by copper toxicity and other imbalances too, that simply were never given proper guidance. And it's kind of come full circle now, where I've put all this information out there for the world to learn from. Mineral mastery course as well, which is leading this education field. But it was time to finally write the book, the seminal book on this topic. There are books that have come before me. I'm not the original pioneer in this, but there's a lot of research that's come out in the past 2 decades, which I felt needed to be published. And so I basically culminated all of the research in the past 50 years and put that into this book, and not just the research, but also providing a step-by-step roadmap to help people resolve this situation, this imbalance. There is, one of my biggest frustrations in the past 10 years is all the BS misinformation out there, both on, Dr. Google, internet now with AI. Information is also being very conveniently tailored to what is allowed to be seen. And even social media groups have been one of the biggest roadblocks in helping people get clear answers, because there is just everybody has their own opinion but a lot of it is uneducated opinion, and it just leads people further astray. So it was time that an official book was finally written to support people with copper imbalance.
The thing that's so beautiful about a book too, for somebody that might be really struggling and, isn't in a position to be able to afford the support right away, it's an easy access tool to at least start to learn about what's going on. So, if you're dealing with some health issues, and we're going to discuss this, and any of what we're going to discuss, strikes a chord with you, get the book and read it. Because it can make all the difference in your life. And if you don't experience any of the symptoms that we're about to talk about, get the book and read it, because everybody should know about this because of the amount of misinformation that's being shared. The more you arm yourself with knowledge, the less that essentially what I like to call the powers that be can use you for their agenda. Being savvy is always a good idea, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, on social media in particular, I've watched with frustration over the years of people begging for guidance, trying to find answers, and in a year, 2 years, 3 years later, they're still on social media, still trying to find answers. And sometimes the excuse is, well, I can't afford a practitioner. It's like, okay, well, I mean, that's legit. There is lots of free information out there. I've put all the information out there for free on the internet already through coppertoxic.com. I've got free ebooks, tons of free, resource sites. But here's a book, $20 or so, and it gives the exact roadmap for addressing copper toxicity. So hopefully people can spend the $20 or so to learn from a professional, then spend years struggling on social media sites trying to find answers and listening to everybody else who's also struggling.
So I'm really noticing that there's a huge trend when it comes to copper. Like I've noticed it popping up in all the stores, like the bracelets and copper cups and all sorts of stuff. And it's a big, huge thing. And you're talking about copper toxicity. So can you help me understand what copper toxicity actually is?
Yeah, so copper is an essential nutrient, and this is where all the confusion stems from, because how can something that is important for us be toxic? That you can't have it both ways. Well, indeed you can. There is bound copper, which is copper attached to a protein that is functions well and supports the health of the body. But there's also unbound copper, which is copper not attached to a protein, that is freely floating in blood, and that copper ions unbound are cytotoxic, or in other words, they're toxic to cells. And when copper builds up in the body, it creates a whole host of health conditions, both physical and mental. And we can get into the symptoms if you'd like. But it's it's easy to take anything that has a benefit and market it. That is the foundation of all of marketing. You take anything under the sun, and the marketers will look at the benefits and shine the spotlight on the benefits. And when you do that, you could sell anything. But that's one side of the story. And copper is not unique in terms of minerals, having both a benefit and a detriment. Other minerals also have benefits and detriments. Benefits at a healthy level, detriments in excess. Yeah. If we use selenium as just an example, you'll find selenium in Brazil nuts, lots of other foods as well. But selenium is a very important nutrient, supports our thyroid health. It's a powerful antioxidant, but too much selenium can lead to a condition called selenosis, which is selenium toxicity. Yeah, so this is just one of many examples of how something that's very important for us can backfire when it's in excess. And same thing with copper.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I remember talking to somebody that was telling me about her husband who actually had, he was iron toxic. He had too much iron. And so he was going through a process to balance that out. And I think we understand toxicity from a lot of levels. I think a lot of people are really careful when it comes to taking a lot of nutrients because they're aware of the fact that there is a toxic element to it. And yet somehow there doesn't seem to be much of a conversation around what happens if you have too much copper. And I don't even think that it's a thing. In fact, they're saying it's not. So can we just explore for a second what the symptoms of copper toxicity are?
Yeah, I'll get into symptoms. I just want to touch on the thing you just said there. Um, and going back to the overpromotion of copper itself, if you listen closely to the messages that are fed to people, it's usually promoting things that are not necessarily healthy for us. Okay. Classic example is, with women's health. As women get older, they have a higher risk of osteoporosis. And I'll ask you, what's the main mineral that women are told to take to protect their bones against osteoporosis? What would you say? Women
Magnesium.
are told to take,
Magnesium.
well, no, they're not. They're told to take calcium, right? You understand a little bit about the mineral system already, but the major marketing push is on calcium to support bone health. But that's not the way it works. If you take all this calcium,
Yeah, that's what's going on. See, I started to get the twitchies and everything and the muscle cramps, and I was like magnesium. So right now I'm at the stage where magnesium is a non-negotiable for me. Calcium, nobody's telling me that yet. I'm not old enough.
yeah, well, yeah. And you're right, magnesium is the key that helps keep calcium in bone. Yeah. But if you look at the products that are promoted for bone health and the messages for bone health and osteoporosis,
All the calcium. Yeah.
it's a much greater push for calcium
Yeah.
over magnesium.
Yeah.
Right now, the past few days, I've been seeing this commercial on the internet for diabetes, and I'm not going to mention what company it is, but it's this long 1 minute long commercial, all the research they're doing to find the cure for diabetes, we can be strong together and we'll find the cure. And it's all about medications and whatnot. There's not a single mention about magnesium, and magnesium is a very important nutrient for managing diabetes. Anyways, we could go down the rabbit hole with that. But let's go back to copper. So in terms of symptoms, I want to make it very clear that copper by itself is not the sole culprit of copper toxicity associated symptoms. And this is a big area of confusion when I see people having symptoms, whatever it might be. It could be hair loss, could be candida, could be depression, could be anxiety, could be utter exhaustion, brain fog, you name it. There can be a long list of symptoms associated with copper toxicity. But here's the thing, it's not copper always that directly creates the symptom. If you imagine a row of dominoes, and if you have copper as that first domino, and then you've got all your other minerals, lined up as dominoes afterwards. So you've got magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium, zinc, phosphorus, iron, etc., molybdenum, manganese. As copper goes in excess, it's kind of knocking over or affecting the other dominoes. So those dominoes fall over. Now you have imbalances in those dominoes, and every single one of those dominoes has its own set of symptoms. Yeah. So it's, when the list of copper toxicity symptoms is extremely long, and fatigue is a classic one. Now, this does not mean that copper toxicity is the only cause of fatigue. Of course not. That's not even remotely realistic, but it is one contributing factor. And then, well, what does copper do to the calcium magnesium balance? It's going to be raising that calcium magnesium ratio. And that high calcium magnesium ratio can also affect energy production. Yeah? So the classic symptoms with copper toxicity would be initially increased energy, because copper is an excitotoxin. It kind of functions similar to D-amphetamine, and it can rev a person up and make them feel great initially. But in the long term, it leads into fatigue, exhaustion, brain fog. It can be the wired but tired. So the brain is wired, but the body is tired. Yeah. It can affect digestive health. It can lower stomach acid in the gut, affecting your assimilation of nutrients. It can increase the risk for candida. So copper is an antifungal. That's one of its benefits. So when copper is acting properly in your body, it's protecting you against fungal infection. But it's two sides of one coin. So excess copper is not available for the body. It can't be used, and it can actually lead to an increased risk for candida. Yeah. Hair loss can be associated with it. Depression, anxiety is a huge one. And you and I, we're writing a book on anxiety right now, which will be out this year. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. Yeah. So it's both physical and mental health. Copper is a major catalyst to a lot of the most common symptoms that we see today developing.
I love what you talk about when it comes to helping people to understand that this by itself isn't the issue. Because when you think about all of the nutritional products out there, a lot of the nutritional products out there, what they're doing is they're taking what Mother Nature does in harmony. If you take broccoli, for example, broccoli has a phenomenal amount of nutrients to it, right? There's all sorts of vitamins and nutrients and minerals and all sorts of things in that broccoli. And they take one element and they isolate it, and then they sell it to you and say, this comes from broccoli, this does this. But now you're missing the symphony of elements that allow for the benefits that the broccoli has when you eat the broccoli to support your body, right? So this is the same idea, but essentially in the reverse. We can't take this one isolate, this one element and say, this is the evil, right? When it goes into the body, it has a cascade of interactions and effects. And so it's important to be aware of that when you guys are listening to him. Don't just villainize one element. Think of your body as this beautiful symphony and all sorts of different things going on. And it's a matter of balancing things. I've heard Rick talk about this so many times. When you are deficient in something, you don't necessarily go get that thing to balance or optimize the thing. Sometimes you need to take something else for the body to actually optimize the thing that's deficient, which seems counterintuitive, but that's the way that the body works. Now, from my standpoint, I did about 10 years worth of educating and research in optimizing glutathione. And when I learned how to do that, I learned that in optimizing glutathione, you don't take glutathione because glutathione is its own entity within your body, and it has particular elements that it consumes to optimize itself and function. So there are 4 different elements that need to be consumed for the glutathione to optimize itself. And it's the same thing with what Rick is talking about. So if you're vitamin D deficient, Rick, what do?
You take magnesium. Well, first, yeah, yesterday I had a client who had been told to take 70,000 IU of vitamin D by her doctor.
Oh my God.
And I suggested that was
insanity. A horrible idea.
But, 70,000 is extreme. But, even 10,000, I see this all the time. And nobody is teaching them that magnesium is what helps activate your vitamin D. You can support vitamin D naturally by taking magnesium, or at least take the vitamin D with K2. Yeah. But the nutritional messages that are mainstream are just leading to the worsening of health across.
Of health
doing the right thing by taking some popular nutrient, and they're making health worse. And this is what I said a few minutes ago, is if you listen closely to what's being promoted, the most popular promotions out there, it's usually not the stuff you want to be doing. For bone health, calcium, no, you want to be supporting the cofactors that help keep calcium in your bones. For vitamin D, you want to be supporting the nutrients that support vitamin D naturally, such as magnesium. With copper, as you just alluded to, it's not always just about um, taking more copper or detoxing all the copper. This is one of the biggest confusions out there. Is number one, if you have a deficiency of copper, you should just take lots more copper. And on the other side of the coin, if you have copper toxicity, there's all this focus on just getting all the copper out of the body. And both of these are so far from the way that the body is supposed to work. If the focus is just on pulling out copper from the body, it is ignoring all those other dominoes that have fallen over that are also contributing to symptoms. And I still see practitioners today that are hyper focused on just trying to lower the copper level with disregard given to all the other dominoes that have fallen over. And then on the other side of the coin is supporting the availability of copper. I'm going to just kind of sidestep into an analogy and then come back to what I was saying here. So copper is kind of like water in the ocean. We need water, but if you're dying of thirst in the middle of the ocean, there's water all around you, but you can't drink it. So at the same time that you have an excess of all this water, it's not available to you. So there's also a deficiency of available water. And so similar to with copper, the body can have lots of copper inside the body, but if the body can't use it, there's also deficiency at the same time. And we want to be supporting copper's bioavailability. And this comes down to a bit of a more complex process. It's not as simple as just taking more copper. Copper, as I mentioned, needs to be primarily bound to a protein called ceruloplasmin. This protein is produced by the liver, and adrenals help support that production process. So in supporting proper available copper in the body, supporting the adrenals, supporting the liver is important. But you also need to have magnesium and retinol on board. These nutrients also support copper's availability. So part of supporting copper also needs to be looking at, well, what's going on with retinol, meat-based vitamin A? What's going on with magnesium? Most people are deficient to some degree. And so most people are deficient in available copper, which is what you see in the messages all the time. Everyone's deficient in copper. Well, yeah, that's true. But at the same time, they also have all this excess copper in the body that's wreaking havoc.
So I want to recap for a second because I want everybody to really have powerful takeaways from this. So it's not about the focus of, taking as much as you can or detoxing. It's about optimizing, right? And also, it's about understanding the symphony and the harmony that's working within the body and trusting that the body is a beautiful, beautiful machine that they're still trying to figure out. And it wants to be healthy. And if we learn to work with it, like you said, to make the nutrients that we're consuming available for the body to use, then it will then utilize and do with what it wants and discard what it doesn't need. So trying to just get rid of it all doesn't make any sense. And think about the cornucopia of nutrients. Think about holistic health as opposed to just hyper focusing on one nutrient or just a few nutrients and then popping all those pills thinking that that's what's going to fix everything, because there's a lot that's going on and there are things that are in your body that are actually producing the nutrients that you need through other means, like you said, right? So you don't take vitamin D to optimize vitamin D. You take magnesium to optimize vitamin D. Copper is utilized by being paired with a protein. So it's not taking more copper. It's about making sure the body can actually utilize it. So realize, guys, that this isn't just about popping a bunch of pills thinking that it's going to fix it or going and getting a box and detoxing, right? Don't think about maxing or clearing. Think about optimizing. Optimizing is the key, right?
Yeah, exactly. A 30-day detox kit from the local store is not even remotely adequate for properly detoxing the body.
It's so the thing
And
though, like really, like I'll just go do a wild rose cleanse and it'll fix everything because I'm
well,
feeling kind of bloated.
everybody wants the magic quick pill, yeah. But
Yes.
and for some people, you might get lucky and it might help, but for most people, it's far more in depth. The balancing and detox process is far more in depth. And just, I want to add a little bit of clarity to one thing you said there is you don't fix vitamin D by taking more vitamin D. And then you'll get, of course, you'll get the arguments and saying, well, I've taken vitamin D, my levels went up. It's like, look, if you flood your body with anything, you're going to raise your level. That's, yeah, we agree with that. But is that the smartest way to do it? Because flooding your body with 10,000 or 70,000 IU of vitamin D is bound to raise your vitamin D level in the short term. But is it addressing the underlying reason why you had low vitamin D in the first place? No, it's a band-aid solution. And the same thing is true with iron. I see iron infusions being given all the time to raise low iron. And the iron level goes up. It's doing nothing to address the underlying reason behind the low iron in the first place.
Yeah,
So
I was
yes,
not. I was on that hamster wheel for many years because when I started to get my period at 16, I was iron deficient and I would get so dizzy all the time that like I would like black out and stuff like that. Like it was really, really bad. And the doctors just were like, you just need to take iron. And so I tried iron in every form I could get my hands on. And the issue did not resolve itself until I discovered glutathione optimization, and my body just optimized it and utilized it itself. And then I went back to the doctor and had a full physical. And for the first time in my life, I was told that my iron was perfectly balanced. And I was like, and I'm not going to tell you how I did it because I know you don't care.
no, I care.
Yeah, you do.
But
But
here's the other thing
the
with iron. What
practitioner does
people,
it.
yeah. Here's the other thing too with iron is, what supports iron availability
What's
is
that?
copper.
Cool, right?
And the protein that I mentioned earlier, ceruloplasmin, supports copper, which then in turn supports iron. And I can't tell you the number of patients I've had come to me over the years have been told they're anemic and they've been put on iron supplementation without any discussion or investigation into their copper status or even ceruloplasmin.
Yeah, that wasn't a factor at all
It's
with me.
just, here's the magic pill. Oh, you're low in this. Here's the magic pill.
They just give you the direct thing and just go here, that'll optimize it. And it never resolved the issue. I don't know how much money I spent on iron supplements and it never resolved the issue. It was ridiculous. So I'd like to ask, like, you're saying that there's a bunch of symptoms. Is there anything in particular that you would tell somebody to look out for to actually kind of like tweak in their mind, hey, maybe I should be looking to have a conversation with Rick or looking at his resources or buying this book because maybe I have copper toxicity?
Yes. I do want to say that, well, okay, as an easy place to start is the website coppertoxic.com, completely free. 10 years of research on coppertoxic.com, just putting that information out there for people. On the symptoms page, there's a list of the most common symptoms. The more of those symptoms you have, the more chance there is that maybe excess copper is a concern for you. But I also want to give the caveat. I've had a lot of people come to me over the years who have, let's say, fatigue, depression, anxiety, and hair loss, which are common symptoms of copper toxicity. And they will automatically assume, oh, I've got these 4 symptoms, I must be copper toxic. No, not necessarily. Yeah. So again, copper is not the only culprit here. We have to look at the body holistically and understand that other imbalances also contribute to symptoms. So just because you have some of the symptoms associated with copper toxicity does not automatically mean copper toxicity. That being said, if you have an obvious source of copper exposure, and the copper IUD is, in my opinion, the single most powerful catalyst for copper toxicity. There are other sources as well, but the copper IUD is a big one. If you're on a copper IUD and you're a few months into it, or maybe a year or two, usually within the first 6 months though, and you're noticing that your energy levels are plummeting and concentration is becoming more difficult, brain fog is taking over, maybe you're experiencing gut issues, maybe your hair's falling out, likely having an effect. And of course, the doctors will say there's no such thing. The amount of copper given off from a copper IUD is inconsequential. If you compare the amount of ions given off from a copper IUD compared to the recommended daily intake of copper, it's minuscule. Therefore, there's no possible way that a copper IUD could affect health. Again, complete ignorance to the fact that copper nanoparticles from biomaterials such as the copper IUD act completely different and are far more toxic than copper taken in through food. So you cannot compare copper inserted into the body through a biomaterial or a copper IUD with the copper content in an avocado. It's two different conversations.
I love the passion. And I love that you brought up a copper IUD because I actually was going to ask you about that. And it's a beautiful segue. So I recently was thinking about getting my tubes tied because my partner and I are poly. And so I'm like, okay, well, he got fixed, but that doesn't solve my problem. So maybe I should look into getting something done, right? And so I had a conversation with my doctor about it, and she's like, so you're definitely done having kids. I'm like, I'm 44. I shouldn't be trying to have kids. And I know for anybody who is at that stage in their lives, congratulations. I hope it works out for you. I'm done. My kid's 24. He's grown up. I'm not going back for more. So she automatically started to, the first thing she suggested and suggested multiple times was a copper IUD. And I know better. So I said to her, look, I understand that you don't have a lot of education when it comes to this, but a copper IUD is a really, really bad idea. And I was really upset I love and adore my doctor. She's a sweetheart, right? So I'm not going to get mad at her for her lack of education, but she really pushed the copper IUD. And I had to really push going and seeing a gynecologist to have a conversation about what's right for me. So can you please explain why there's such a push by the doctors to get a copper IUD?
Sorry, I was distracted. You had some bubble thumbs coming up there on your
Yeah,
screen.
you can make different things happen.
Oh my goodness. Wow, look at that. Can I do that? Yeah.
It should, if you're a Mac, it's a Mac
All
thing.
good. All good. I cannot tell you the direct reasoning why doctors want to push the copper IUDs. I just think that it's more just a lack of training. It's like with any medication or any symptom, the training is equate the symptom with the corresponding medication. Yeah. Without being adequately trained to understand the impacts of mineral imbalances within the body and how adjusting those mineral levels can, in many cases, resolve the symptom. And so with the copper IUD, again, they're not being taught for the most part about the interconnections of minerals, the interconnections between minerals and hormones. So the IUD, the copper IUD, is marketed on the basis that it's non-hormonal. So if a woman is having reactions to the birth control pill, well, the obvious alternative is, well, here's a copper IUD. It's not going to affect you because it's non-hormonal. Again, that is completely, what's the word here? Ignoring the fact that minerals regulate hormones. So yes, from a marketing standpoint, it's brilliant. The copper IUD does not contain hormones, but it contains copper, and copper affects hormones.
Yeah, I found it really interesting
and
because she obviously didn't want to mess with my hormones being the age that I am. And I said that I'm like, I'm done sacrificing my body. And so she was like, again, and this is why a copper IUD is good for you. And I was just like, and no, it's not.
Yeah, and the number of cases of mental health symptoms resulting from the copper IUD is astronomical, and it pisses me off to no extent at the numbers of people who are suffering mentally from their copper IUDs. beginning with depression and anxiety, going
Yeah.
all the way to suicide
And the thing
after
that's
the
interesting
IUD insertion.
thing that like when your hormones are being messed with, it does affect your mood and everything. I had an IUD, but I had the hormonal one for 5 years. And I didn't realize until I took it out that I was being censored. Those hormones were censoring me. I wasn't getting as angry or as happy or as passionate or as frisky or as any. Like I was more balanced, even keel. And then when I took it out, I was feeling my emotions so much more intensely to the point where I was acting out more because it was like new to me that I was so much more vibrant and
Mhm,
fiery and
mhm.
significantly friskier as well. And it was just like, oh my God, this is the full maximum effort harmony. And I loved it. And I was like, nobody told me when I had that put in that it was going to censor me. And if I had had a conversation with somebody and they had said, Harmony, it's going to censor you, I'd be like, well, I'm not signing up for that. And it took 5 years and it being taken out for me to realize that. And copper is essentially doing the same thing, but it's essentially going in and it's not directly feeding the hormones. It's affecting the hormones that are then affecting your mental health, your mindset, your emotional health, and all the rest of that. Right. So both are doing very similar things or the same thing. They're just going at it from a different approach. And it's not good. It's just not
No,
good.
it's not good. But we have to understand that copper does affect neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
Copper does affect other minerals. Zinc and copper have a fairly well known relationship,
Yeah.
antagonistic relationship. And prior to menopause, zinc is supportive for the ovaries to produce progesterone. So zinc and progesterone have a relationship, whereas copper and estrogen have a relationship. So as copper builds up, if a person has great energy versus a person who is utterly exhausted and can't get off the couch, which person do you think has a better sex life? The person with good energy.
I mean, if
Yeah.
you have a partner
So
who's like
when
really energetic and you can lay there and take it, then it could work out. But I mean, it's just better to have two people participating. That's all I'm saying.
agreed, but when copper toxicity leads into adrenal burnout and exhaustion, we as humans go into our survival mode.
Yeah.
In exhaustion and burnout, we're not thinking about the fun stuff and having sex. We're thinking about getting through the day. I need to get off the couch and prepare dinner. That's all I can focus on right now. Don't even talk to me about sex. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go into survival mode in exhaustion, and copper toxicity leads to that state of exhaustion, which of course is then going to affect libido and relationships. There's also the component of the calcium shell, and this is an emotionally numbing phenomenon
Yeah.
where a high tissue level of calcium builds up. Again, copper toxicity is one of the contributing factors to a calcium shell. And I teach about this in quite depth within the Mineral Mastery course, all these other relationships as well, beyond just copper, and the effects on mental health. And so the calcium shell, what it does, it's our body's ultimate defense against overwhelming stress, and excess copper is a stressor. And when excess calcium builds up, do you know where the primary place or the place of most calcification in the body occurs? In the
Um,
pineal gland. In the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is our connection to greater awareness, greater connection. And when the pineal gland gets overly calcified, it numbs down our awareness and it numbs down our emotions. So a person dealing with what's called a calcium shell, it's just a terminology, but a person with a calcium shell is going to feel completely numbed out.
yeah. And
And that
the
is going to
result
affect relationships.
the result to this ends up being that you have certain circumstances where a person is madly in love and building a life with somebody, or has children and everything, and they literally will just walk away from the relationship and the love, move to a different continent and start a family somewhere else. And then, you know, when the calcium shell subsides for one reason or another, all of a sudden they wake up and go, what the actual did I do? And it's like, it's been so long that it's almost impossible to undo what they've done. So, and they don't realize that they were essentially a victim of the calcium shell.
Well, this, without going into my personal story, but this is exactly what happened to the woman I loved, and what brought me into this work is that exact same experience.
Yeah, and
And
I've
I've
heard it
also,
happen. Yeah, one of my friends
uh,
lost his mother that way. She didn't pass
mhm,
away, but she literally left and moved to Australia and started a whole new family. And he's got serious abandonment issues to this day as a result of that. It's
yeah,
so tragic how it
yeah,
destroys.
and I've worked with several women who've had the exact same experiences, and then, you know, years later, as the shell dissolves, they start realizing what happened. But no one's teaching about this in psychology.
No, but
Again,
it's
that's what Mineral Mastery was designed to teach, is to be the bridge between nutrition and psychology, between nutrition and physical health, and nutrition and mental health.
I just want to like just take a second though, because like I from great pain create was birthed this beautiful passion that created phenomenal awareness that carved a path for you to help create awareness for others. And I know when I first met you, the passion that you had for this, it lit a fire in me. And I felt so grateful to know you, to know the passion that you had to help women. And you don't see a lot of people that see this kind of, let's call it injustice, you know, something that's going on that nobody's talking about, that is speaking out against it. And I know because I've known you for the last decade. We met back in like 2013, 2014. So it's been like a decade that we've known each other. I've seen the challenges and the struggles that you've gone through trying to create awareness around this. And yet you still keep speaking the truth, regardless as to how it's received or if it is at all. And you being a warrior for this, just talking about it for the people that are questioning and want answers to be able to hear it, are it's so incredibly important. It's why we're co-authoring a book together, because we're both passionate about teaching things that are not spoken and educated every single day, that should be common knowledge. Both of us, what we're teaching should be common knowledge, and it's
Mhm,
not. And there's a
mhm.
reason. And I just say it's the powers that be that have an agenda, because we're not going to name names or any of that kind of stuff. And from generation to generation, from culture to culture, there are different powers that be that control everything, that don't want us to be awake and aware and in our power, right? So we're just going to call them the powers that be. But there essentially are always powers that be that are trying to stop us from getting the knowledge that we are speaking about. And it is a constant battle. But guess what? Nobody's going to shut us up. They can't burn me this lifetime. So I'm just going to keep talking.
Well, you know, like for me, I began this work and research out of an act of love. That's what brought me into this entire field, and
Yeah.
fueled my passion to really learn this, and put this out there for others to benefit from and learn from. And yes, there have been just endless roadblocks on a near daily basis. Someone out there is trying to block this information. And, you know, one of so many examples I could give, it's back on my radar right now, is one of the biggest mineral associated, you know, social media groups, hundreds of thousands of followers. When I began presenting this information, to their members back in 2015, 2014, copper toxicity, they called it a myth. There's no such thing. They blocked my posts. They called me a liar. And to this day, they still say copper toxicity is a myth. And now I've seen students of their program going on to copper support groups, trying to support women. And these students have no idea of the history of the education that they've received. Yeah. It's all about some other mineral, and it's not about copper.
No. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate the fact that you have the perseverance and know that there absolutely are people that do want to show up and get help. And for all the people that have hound dog on a nail syndrome and are whining and bitching and complaining and not actually coming to get the answers, there are people that do pay for your services and do the testing and get the reports and make changes in their lives. And those people are worth speaking out for and worth helping. And I want to segue actually to ask, if you're talking about all these symptoms and I think this might be me and I'd like to know a little bit more, how can I engage you? How could I work with you?
Well, I work in clinical practice with clients for mineral balancing and testing. I'm also one of the leaders in the field of HTMA, hair tissue mineral analysis testing. And that is the gold standard test for understanding mineral relationships as well as toxic metals and designing an intelligent detox protocol based on evidence and not just guessing. Yeah, I do find there's a lot of danger. People just guess that they have copper toxicity. They assume they have copper toxicity, and they don't. Yeah, so it's really important to test, have the hard data, and then go forward with a program that combines your test data with a person's health history and symptoms. That's empowerment, not just guessing, yeah, or taking things because somebody else in the group said that they took whatever they took, and now everybody else follows that. We are all bio individually unique, and what works for me could be the worst thing for you, and vice versa. Yeah. So my main website for the clinical work I do is mineralsandhealth.com. On mineralsandhealth.com, you'll find all of my support services for consultations and hair tissue mineral analysis testing. There's also all the free information on copper toxicity on coppertoxic.com. For those who do want to learn this information deeper for copper toxicity specifically, well, that's what the book is now published and there to do, is to bring this information to be the seminal book on this topic. And then, because it's very important to understand that copper does not operate by itself, all these other minerals do need to be considered too. And that is what I teach in the Mineral Mastery course at mineralmastery.com.
Yeah, can you do me a favor and just elaborate on your amazing course for a second? Because this is something that gives a person an opportunity to arm themselves with the wisdom and knowledge. It's one thing to come to you and get the testing done. And I encourage everybody who wants to be proactive about their health to get the testing done. As I was turning 40, I turned to Rick and got the testing done for myself because I was having my mineral IUD, not mineral, oh my God, the hormonal IUD taken out. It's called Mirena. And stepping into that age of my life, I wanted to know where my hormones were at, where my mineral, I just wanted to know where everything was at, to be proactive about stepping into the stage of my life where I'm aging. And I'm now 44, almost 45 now. And I think it's going pretty well. I'm just saying, I don't have any filters on. Okay. So I think that being proactive is the smartest thing that you can do. So absolutely, I implore you to go to get the testing done. Even if you think that you're not copper toxic, just to be proactive to find out where your minerals are at. I think it should be standard practice to have this done so that we know where we're at and we can actively get guidance from a specialist like you to maintain health. I think that's where the world should be, but that's a whole topic into itself. But if I want to be a keener and I want to arm myself with knowledge so that I can be savvy enough to see the people trying to sell this and that and whatever to me, and I'm like trying to figure out where to go and what to do, tell me a little bit more about this course and what I'm going to learn and how it's going to help like next level me.
Well, I designed Mineral Mastery with the intention originally of giving it providing a tool for the average everyday person to support their health, to find answers that they're not being given. And for those who are biohackers and want to optimize their health, give them tools to prevent illness from showing up down the road. That was the original purpose of Mineral Mastery. What I found over the years is I would say 60% now of my students are practitioners in the wellness fields, functional diagnostic nutritionists, various holistic wellness practitioners, because they're very motivated to increase their training. What Mineral Mastery teaches is not being taught in any other nutrition school, and like the testimonials speak for themselves on mineralmastery.com. Even those with multiple PhDs and more credentials than I could, start listing, have repeatedly said that the Mineral Mastery course was the single most important training they've ever received, the missing link in all of their training. It connects the dots. And whether you're a practitioner or whether you're just an average person looking to better support your health, Mineral Mastery connects the dots. This morning, I had one of my students just finished, sent me an email saying that he was in tears finishing the course because he finally understood how all of these minerals connect to his health concerns, how he now understands the corruption and the censorship that is out there in the mainstream. And of course, he wants to go forward now and use this information to help his family. So whether you're an average individual or a highly experienced practitioner, either way, this is a life-changing experience. Mineral Mastery is now also part of the Mineral Mastery Academy, which brings together HTMA training, the highest echelon training for HTMA practitioners, courses in HTMA together with the foundational mineral-based health and nutritional support. So where I would start, Harmony, is begin with the mineralmastery.com website. At the top, there is a link for the Academy if you are a practitioner and you want to really up your game, up your level with hair analysis testing. The Academy brings together the Mineral Mastery training with HTMA training courses. Also on my main website, mineralsandhealth.com, there is a tab that I believe it says free resources. There are 2 free books that I would really encourage every viewer to download. Again, they're free. One is the Navigating Copper Toxicity ebook. I've mentioned I put out so much free information over the years for people, and this is a free ebook to get a basic understanding of copper toxicity, helping women dealing with copper toxicity or copper IUD issues navigate and understand condition. It's free. Start there. And then if you do want to learn deeper, then absolutely the Complete Copper Toxicity Handbook, which is now available on Amazon, would be the next step. There is also another free ebook, mineralsandhealth.com, free ebooks, another free ebook that is called Mineral Secrets to Optimal Health. That ebook is a kind of an overview or an introduction to the Mineral Mastery course because it goes through a simple elementary education into minerals, including copper, and how they impact health, the benefits of blood testing, the drawbacks of blood testing, why hair analysis is so important for understanding these imbalances, the relations between minerals and toxic metals. So again, this is a free ebook and a great place for people to start to really understand how minerals impact health.
Can you just really quickly touch base on why I wouldn't just go to my doctor to get my blood tested to tell me where my minerals are at?
Well, blood is homeostatic. And for the vast majority of people, the blood mineral levels will come back within range. If you are one of 99.9% of people, your blood mineral levels, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, copper, zinc, will typically be within range. Maybe a little bit on the high side or a little bit on the low side, but usually within range. But blood is homeostatic, meaning it's self-regulating. It regulates itself at the expense of what's happening in our cells and tissues. So by the time a potassium deficiency, for example, shows up in your blood test, you're already in the 11th hour of illness. That deficiency has been happening in your cells for ages. And we can see that better through a hair analysis test. Same thing with copper. This is one of the big things with copper toxicity is if the blood copper level comes back normal, then copper toxicity is dismissed. Well, excess copper is stored in tissue, not blood. So why would you expect to see a high copper level in blood unless the copper is being mobilized in that time of testing to actually show up in blood? Also to consider, when copper is high in blood, that doesn't always mean copper toxicity. It can, but copper can also elevate in blood in times of infection or cancer. Yeah. So, but for the most part, copper will come back within range in blood, and copper toxicity is never explored further. And yet a person can have tons of copper in their body tissue, in their liver, and yet the blood level comes back normal and answers are kept hidden from people.
Yeah, I know that the average person, that's what they're thinking. Oh, I'll just go, especially in Canada, and see my doctor and get, some blood tests, and they'll tell me what's what. So I think it's really important for people to understand the difference in the testing that's done. So why is hair analysis accurate and better?
Well, there's no perfect test. Even a liver biopsy is still not a perfect test. I explain this, or I use the analogy of looking into a apartment building, looking through a window. You look through one window, like that's it, the lobby window, and you get an idea. Oh yeah, the carpet is, pretty worn, the furniture is crappy, it's an old building. But then you look through another window and they've renovated that room, and then you see like new stuff. And the more windows you look through, the more you come to understand what's inside the apartment building. You don't get a complete picture by looking through one window. And blood by itself is not by any means a complete picture. In fairness, neither is hair analysis. In fairness, neither is a liver biopsy. But they're all new windows of information. And when it comes to minerals and metals specifically, the hair analysis is a better test than blood because the imbalances are much more readily seen through hair analysis than in a blood test. And when the hair analysis is properly interpreted, it gives a wealth of insight into how those imbalances go on to affect symptoms.
Thank you. That's really, really, really helpful. Now, I want to ask really quickly, when it comes to this beautiful book that you've published, what is the big takeaway that you're really hoping that people will get from this book?
Clarity. Clarity. There's, I've been doing this day in, day out for over 10 years, and the tide of awareness has shifted. I have created a movement in the field of mineral-based health education and copper toxicity awareness. People are becoming more aware. That being said, there's still so much unawareness, yeah, and so much confusion out there, and even on groups that are talking about copper toxicity. You'll get some new practitioner that's, studied, for a month or so, and now they're on this group giving their opinions, and quite often they are wrong and misleading. And it just creates so much confusion for the average person who has no training in this. They're just trying to find, a way back to health. So it is high time that a book like this was published, and the purpose of it is to bring clarity, to bring forward the research. The book is filled with scientific references, hundreds of references from PubMed, the respected resources of science, and it lays it out in a very easy to follow, easy to digest manner. And again, the roadmap for addressing copper toxicity.
So I'm going to show this beautiful book one more time so you guys can see how incredibly gorgeous it is. And I would like to ask you, where can people get their hands on it? Because I have my hands on a signed copy, but where can they get one?
So it is available on Copper Tox. Well, there's a few ways you can do it. Coppertoxic.com. On that website, there is a digital version that is available by donation only. But if you want the physical copy, which is obviously much nicer with that sexy cover, then yes, you can order that through Amazon. I don't have the exact link, but you can put that link on this video, I assume, Harmony?
Yeah. I will make sure that you guys have all of the links, and I want you guys to know that I approached Rick to have this conversation because it is one of the most important conversations that you will ever have the opportunity to listen to, because it's one that is not being had on the daily. You pay attention as you're getting older as to what's going on with your hormones. You're doing everything you can to try to figure out how to get rid of these fine lines in your forehead, right? You're doing everything you can to make sure that, you know, you can perform sexually, boys, when you hit a certain age. I know it's a thing. It's a factor. There are things that are in our face that challenge us as we're aging, but there are certain things that for some reason we're not being taught to be proactive about or look at essentially when it comes to our health. And the role that minerals play in your health and wellness is pivotal. And I didn't even begin to think about or understand this until I got to know Rick at a health and wellness mixing thing, right? We were at one of those socializing things where we got to like meet other practitioners and stuff, networking event essentially. And it altered my world. And I'm incredibly grateful for the awareness that was created as a result. So make this a part of what you are going to do to optimize your health so that you can age with grace and age beautifully and have quality of life. Because it's not about the number of years that you live, is it? It's about the quality of life that you have for those years. And I am absolutely planning on being one of those ripped 60-something-year-olds, putting everyone to shame. That is my plan. And my mineral health is a part of it because it affects my ability to go into the gym and rock the gym. And he's worked out with me. He knows I'm a beast, right? I'm going to stay that way. And you help that with your education. So please click those links. If you can't afford the book, make a donation and get the book for free. Read the free resources. Open your eyes to how important this is. And do you have any last words for the audience? Because I know I've said a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to just kind of wrap up with that age-old expression. If you teach a man to fish, a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And, you know, in clinical practice, I have barely had a day off for years. I mean, I'm so crazily overworked. But yes, you can work with me. But of course, when you work with any practitioner, whether it's me or anybody else, it costs money. Yeah. And it's kind of like giving you a fish. I can absolutely help you, you know, now. But if you want to learn how to fish, you know, using the analogy, that's what all of these resources are there to support you with: the Mineral Mastery course, the coppertoxic.com website, and the Complete Copper Toxicity Handbook. These are tools that will serve you for life and at a fraction of the cost of working with me, right? Again, you're welcome to reach out. I can work with you and support you. But yeah, these resources are all out there and they're affordable. So get your hands on a copy of the Complete Copper Toxicity Handbook.
What you just said is really important. That if you go and get the testing done, that's a beautiful start, but it should be the start. What's important is educating yourself so that you can take the right steps to create that beautiful quality of life and that health that you're seeking. And the only way that's going to happen is if you arm yourself with the knowledge to take the right steps every single day for the rest of your life. Rick isn't going to do this for you. The only one who's
Just taking responsibility, right? Like every one of us has to take responsibility. I won't be here forever.
Yeah.
Harmony, you won't be here forever. I mean, we'll be here for hundreds of years if we keep ourselves young. But, you know, we're not here forever. And, you know, we can't work with patients forever. No practitioner can. So we have to take responsibility for ourselves and you know, each of you watching this video as well, right? It's in your hands. And the more that you can arm yourself with knowledge to support yourself today and for life, the better off you'll be.
Beautiful. I really respect and appreciate your time so much. And for all of you guys who are watching this, if you're curious to know more about the book that we're co-authoring together, it's called The Ultimate Guide to Overcome Anxiety. And we have a sign-up page so that you can sign up to be notified before it goes live. So I will make sure that I include the link in that if anxiety is a concern for you, and or a friend or family member that's struggling with it, you can buy it and gift it for them. The knowledge that we're sharing in this book is the first of its kind. There is not an anxiety book on the planet that has the information and knowledge that this does, because of the holistic knowledge that both of us have, me being a hypnotherapist and energy worker, and Rick obviously having the understanding of physiology from an arena that other people are just not playing in. It could completely alter your world. So make sure that you grab that link and sign up for the book to be notified when that comes out. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. And I value your time. And I just want each and every one of you to know that I wish you so much love and healing. Bye, guys. Mwah! Wait,
Thanks for watching.
I'm gonna heart.
Hearts. All right, there we go. There we go.
Okay. Bye, guys.